Hello besties, welcome back to the Bloom with Becca podcast. How are we doing? Thank you so much for tuning in. This is episode 11. Oh, we're getting through the episodes. Today I am filming part 2 of my life lessons, 25 life lessons I have learned as a 25-year-old. So if you haven't watched part 1, I recommend that you do. I don't know what makes me think I qualify to be able to talk about all this life advice, but I don't know, it's quite therapeutic for me to come on here and talk through what I have learned in my 25 years of life. I also asked you guys over on Instagram to send in your top most current relevant life lesson at the moment. So I'm going to be reading through some of those. You can follow Bloom with Becca on Instagram, by the way, to get involved each week. But anyway, let's get into the episode. Hello guys, what's up? I am filming this bright and early, which is rare for me. I normally film in the afternoon or even late afternoon, but with daylight savings and it literally gets gloomy at 3 p.m. now. It's just, I have to move this earlier on into the day. It is currently 10:30. I feel like that is pretty good going for me. I normally really struggle to get ready and get everything set up for an early filming session, which I feel like I really need to do more because you're just a little bit more energized in the morning. And also I only have an hour to film this, less actually, so I need to be speedy. I'm off to Suffolk in an hour because unfortunately we actually have a funeral tomorrow. Actually the day after that is my birthday, my 25th birthday, baby. I mentioned in the last episode that Will was surprising me with a weekend away and I had no idea what was booked. Super excited about it. I love surprises. However, I think Will's getting a little bit ill. I really hope I don't catch whatever it is he's fighting off right now. Will's normally the kind of guy who never gets ill and it's always me in the home that gets ill. However, recently, this is now the second time where he's gotten ill first. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's because I've been good this year. I've been taking my vitamins. You know what? It's probably because he works in an office. Whereas I work from home, and when I worked in an office, you are just exposed to so many more bugs. And if someone gets ill, then it's, I don't know, almost inevitable that you're going to get ill. But I don't know, pray for me that I'm not going to get ill because it is my birthday on Friday. We were saying as an adult, there's never a good time to get ill, but this is a particularly bad time because we are going away this weekend. And because Will has foggy, sick brain, we were trying to squeeze in a little gym session last night, and we were driving to the gym and Will was talking about how he was talking to someone at work about and this weekend, and he was I think he was just saying how he's managed to travel quite a bit this year and that's nice. And then they were well, where are you going this weekend? He was this weekend I'm managing to get away to Milan. And I was Will, what did you just do? And he was he was that, how did I do that? And I was how did you do that? How did you just let that slip so candidly? When he's been protecting the secret that is we're going to Milan for my birthday. Oh my God, he was so pissed off at himself, bless him. I felt so bad, but I also was I thought it was hilarious because he let it go so easily. I actually thought it was a joke at first. And then I could tell from his reaction that he was so pissed off at himself that he had let that slip. So we're going to Milan, which I'm really excited about. Never been. I don't think Will's ever been either. So somewhere we've never been. And then he said something that was quite romantic. He was it's because for his 25th, I took him to Italy. So he wanted to do that for me, a little tradition. For his 25th, I booked Venice. Yeah, within our first year of dating, I mean, we moved fast. We're engaged now. So we knew, we knew early on that this was a serious long-term relationship. So yeah, in that first year, I took him to Venice for his birthday. I don't know, is that intense? I feel like it was back then, especially. I was only 20, but yeah, I had a good time. And so I'm really, really excited to go to Milan. It's been on my list for a very long time. And I haven't been to Italy since his 25th. Love Italy. Are you kidding me? I cannot wait to eat all the yummy food. Milan's the fashion capital, one of the fashion capitals of the world. So I love that. I absolutely will go shopping. It is my birthday weekend. I think he knows that. So yeah, doing things that make Becca happy. And yeah, I don't know. I just felt so bad that he was That's not obviously how he wanted me to find out, but it doesn't matter. It was still a shock, just at a very different time. Just a very busy rest of this week, and so I am filming this podcast a little bit early, and I actually still kind of need to pack, so I won't ramble on too much. That's my little life update. And also that just like the seasonal changes are hitting me hard this year. I sound like such a British person complaining about how it's getting dark earlier and how hard it is to get out of bed, but I don't know why it's like really, really hitting me this year. I have found it so hard to like work out in the mornings, get up at 6. There's such a difference getting up at 6 in the summer when it's super bright outside, you're ready to go, getting up at 6 now and it's pitch black and it feels like you should still be asleep. I've just been really struggling with it. I think I probably will do an episode or maybe even a YouTube video surrounded around like how to still be your best self in winter. I want to know from you guys, like, do you like the more wellness focused, heavy advice content? Yeah, what do you like on this podcast? What's your favorite type of episode? I think that's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so let's get into it. Life lessons. I think I got up to number 7 in the last episode because I was rambling away about the story time on my 21st birthday, how I auditioned for X Factor on my 21st birthday and like didn't get through, got a big fat no before I even got to the judges. So if you want to hear that story time, go listen to the last episode. Like I exposed myself. So please go give it a listen, because I don't want to just like put that out for nothing. Okay, so number 8 of my life lessons. Not everyone is going to be happy for you, and you have to protect your inner peace. This has been a huge lesson for me, especially being someone who's gone for something like a little bit less traditional. And I have seen success, without saying that in a really arrogant way, just like I've seen success with YouTube and I've been able to make it a full-time job. And there are still people who I will meet, people from like my younger years who I like don't see them often anymore. They don't really like know what I do and how it does give me so much purpose, and I love what I do nowadays. I'm like so lucky to have this as a job. This is a dream job. It obviously wasn't my dream job when I was younger. I wanted to be a singer and that's why I went to music school. But like, you know, that changes. Your dream job isn't like that one set thing that you pick when you're 15. I think also social media it still can be a little bit taboo or just like misunderstood, which I don't blame people for not understanding. Like, how on earth do you make a job out of that? Or like, how's that fulfilling as a job? It's a very weird one. I feel like if you're not in that world or you don't consume social media that much, then yeah, it might seem a bit like a weird job. But I'll meet people who are like, why don't you do music anymore? Like, oh, when are you going to get back into singing though? Or like, oh, you should get back into singing. And like, those comments are particularly hurtful. And I know they don't mean that. Yeah, it's been a lesson for me. And not just that, some people like genuinely don't want to hear about your job or like things that are going good for you or like cool experiences, opportunities. You know, when you're talking to someone and yeah, you can just tell that they feel like you're bragging. There are just certain people where it feels like they don't want to see you happy, and it's not a case of resenting them or disliking them. It's like they might be struggling with where they're at in their own life. A big lesson I've learned, and I've definitely quoted this before, but this might be my number one thing actually that I stand by, is don't tell people your plans, just show them your results. So like with my YouTube channel, I wouldn't go tell everyone like, oh, I'm gonna be a YouTuber. I told like some people who I'd see often, my closest people, that like, oh, I'm gonna start this YouTube channel, let's see what happens. I don't know, when you're starting something a bit scary, starting something new, you know how it's like that typical kind of cliche. Like when I started my channel, I know there would have been people from like high school, not people I'm close to in my life, but people who would be like, oh, judgy, Becca started a YouTube channel, she's trying to be an influencer. And I hope now I can be like, well, I like made a job out of it. You know what I mean? There's just that difference of like, oh, well, they've done it, so now it's cooler, as opposed to like, oh, they're trying. And we see so many people being like, just act a Lulu until like that thing happens for you. And I love that. Okay, number 9. This has been very relevant this year for me. This has been a big lesson this year. I have really struggled with kind of loving myself or thinking I'm pretty enough, with like body image issues, self-confidence. I feel like it stems from what I do for a living and having to edit myself and judge myself all the time and look at myself and compare myself to like other girls on social media who are beautiful. Yeah, I think that has caused some issues. I also feel like I have gotten a bit better. Summer, for whatever reason, was like a particularly low time. There was a point where I was like, I don't really love myself. And that's when I started this podcast, actually. It was episode 1. I was talking about, just how much I really was struggling with body image. I've learned that by going and doing something to fix my external appearance, whether that's change my hair color or get eyelash extensions, get my nails done, get a spray tan, like changing something external about me appearance wise is not going to cure everything. It's not going to cure your self-confidence issues. It's not going to cure your body image issues. This sounds really obvious, but it's one of those things where like, yeah, you know, you sound dumb, but you are kind of like, oh, but I will be so much prettier with brown hair, or I'll be so much prettier when I cut my hair. I don't know why, but we do this. We like set up that expectation. Everything will be fine once I get that haircut. Everything will be fine once I'm pretty. It has been so apparent to me that those issues come from within. There is nothing I can do to myself externally. One of my biggest physical insecurities is like my nose. And so I went and got filler last year and I 100% loved it. I don't regret it. But I always told myself when I was younger, I was like, oh, if I could fix my nose, I would love myself. Like I would be sorted. I'd never say a bad thing about myself again. And it's just not how it works. You have to work really internally on loving yourself as a person and just seeing so much further than how you appear physically in this world. Loving yourself for who you are is such a beautiful thing, and like knowing in your heart that you're a good person and you treat your loved ones with respect, like all of that is so much more valuable. But yeah, that little beauty appointment ain't gonna fix it. Talking about trying to be a better person, I guess, internally and everything, here's a lesson that I really need to like remind myself of more than I would have thought, and it makes me feel like a bad person, but I need to stop instantly jumping to the negative when I meet new people or when I'm hanging out with people. We all have that kind of judgy side to us. Like if I'm jealous of someone, I know without meaning to, without wanting to be like this, but I might point out something that isn't perfect about them to make me feel better about myself. And that's really like horrible to admit, but I'm being really honest. I know I'm not alone. I feel like women are particularly bad at like, we put each other down. And I really have been there where I've like put women down in my head to make me feel better about myself. But like, that is not a healthy way to do it. And not just women, like some people, if I meet them for the first time, I don't know why, like I just will focus on the negative, and not nice mindset to have. It doesn't make you happy. I think if you see the good in people, that's going to make you feel so much better as well. And something I really want to get better at is complimenting people. Be sure, you know how I think the first point I said in part 1 of this was to support your friends as much as you can. And I think part of that is also like, remember to compliment your friends. Remember to check in and be like, you're doing so well. I am so proud of you. There's something so nice about receiving a random message like that. Yeah, having that negative mentality just makes you a more negative person. I feel like moving to London has not helped me. You are a product of your surroundings, kind of. So for me, like in London, people tend to be, the default is we're a little rude, right? Like in public. And you don't have to be that just because you're surrounded by it, or you live in London, you're a Londoner. Like you don't have to be that rude person shoving people out the way on the tube, or like grumpy. I don't know why we all look so grumpy all the time. But yeah, you like absorb that negativity. And I think that's just something I have become I'm trying to become way more aware of. Lesson number 11. We are so stressed about having it all worked out, being the best at what we do, making a name for ourselves. But it is actually so rare to have it all worked out before you're 25. I know there's people I grew up with, who I went to school with, who like always knew what they wanted to do. I can think of a particular girl who I was so close to in high school, and I hope she's doing well, but she always wanted to be a midwife. And I found that so inspiring. Since before I can remember, she wanted to be a midwife. And so she knew the exact subject she had to take to do that, the grades she needed, what uni courses there were in Scotland, in the UK, what ones she wanted. Like her path, because she had that certainty, was so clear for her. And so her trajectory was so clear. It was pass that exam, get into uni, pass your classes, graduate, get a job interview, pass the job interview, and then work your way up in the NHS. I mean, I'm talking from like my perspective of how it looked for her. I'm sure everyone has their doubts, right? And their hurdles. And a life lesson of mine has been like, even though some people have that, and that's amazing for them, it doesn't make you any less worthy if you don't have it worked out. I think school is particularly bad with teaching us that, because it feels like, oh, you pick your subjects when you're like 14, 15, 16. And then it's like, okay, so those subjects are the subjects that are going to get you into this course in uni. And then it feels like that's you like already setting up your career. You go to uni, so you have that degree to get that job that you need. And what 16-year-old actually knows what the hell they want to do with their life? I'm just saying, even if you're at 25, even if you're at 30, 40, and you still aren't sure, you're figuring it out. It doesn't make you any less worthy. I feel like being really open-minded about that is a great thing. I love what I do. Like I've said maybe 4 times in this podcast already, but I'm like, I know this might not be it forever. I might go do something else. I might want to go do something else. That's actually quite a freeing feeling as opposed to it being a scary thought. Number 12, the more successful you become, and so say success in terms of like material possession, money, so the more you buy, the more you own, actually equates to the more responsibility you have, and not necessarily in a good way. So I feel like us as a society, we might see someone who has an increase in material possessions, and we think that often is accompanied with an escalation of one's perceived success. However, owning more comes with the weight of maintaining, organizing, safeguarding, learning how to take care of things, and also sometimes restricts you. Do not want to say this the wrong way, because there is not a bone in my body that regrets having Mochi and getting a dog. However, that was a very particular decision. I think I was, how old? 22 when we got Mochi. So a 22-year-old getting a dog, that is you deciding, okay, I can't just fuck off for a year and go traveling. I can't just, go live somewhere else. Now, I know for me that it doesn't matter. It's 100% worth it because I love him to my core. He is my son. But I hope you can see my point. If I use maybe a better example actually is my car. Will and I have a car. That car has actually been a huge burden for us whilst living in London. It requires us to pay way more rent for parking. Every month you have to budget for fuel. You have to budget for parking. Parking fines come out of nowhere. MOTs, I mean, they don't come out of nowhere, but all of that expensive. Your car might break down. Those kind of things. You almost become a slave to your possessions. Also, when it comes to purchasing something expensive or flashy, extremely materialistic, so let's say like a designer bag, I am someone who has done this. And when I do, I have to really ask myself, am I doing this solely for me because I really want this bag and I'm prepared to spend a stupid amount of money on it, because let's be honest, designer bags are stupid money? Or am I doing it so people perceive me as successful? I have to really ask myself that question. What are we on? Lesson 13. This is a big one for me. It's okay for your work to give you a sense of purpose, achievement, and fulfillment. Now, whilst there is the toxic hustle culture and the whole messaging of I'll sleep when I die. These years are for us to hustle and work and grind, and why aren't you working 14 hours a day? That is all, that messaging is all very toxic, yes. And I feel like the comparison game is strong on social media. Who's doing the most? Who's the most successful? Who gets up at 6 a.m. is working all the way until 6 p.m. You see people who share their daily schedule online, and whilst personally I don't have a problem with it, I find it kind of cool. I know it rubs some people the wrong way of oh my god, you fit so much into your day. That's just what I mean by the toxic productivity side of things. But there is also, I feel sometimes the wrong messaging when it comes to self-care, and sometimes I feel it might go too far the other way. I'm not sure how to word that. I don't feel I'm putting that very eloquently, but I think it was Grace Beverly who I heard say this in a podcast, and she was talking about how self-care for her sometimes isn't just like giving up on work and having a bath. Sometimes it is actually grinding to get that deadline done. It's doing those extra few hours of work so that you feel that relief, you feel that sense of pride and proud of yourself that you got that deadline done. And this is something I really relate to. I've had circumstances where we're told like, oh, just switch it all off, give up today, go spend a day on yourself, which sometimes works. But then sometimes you've put off the thing that you need to get done even longer, and that makes you feel worse. You feel more anxious. So whilst I'm saying like your 12-hour work days are not cute, they're not healthy, it's also okay though if you're finding purpose in that. And our jobs do give us such a sense of purpose. We spend so many hours of our day, biggest chunk of our week at work. So of course, like it goes without saying the whole like you have to find something you love in what you do. And it's like, no, there is a sense of joy in working hard and priding yourself as a hard worker. Number 14. Let's talk a little bit about money. This has been a huge lesson doing what I do, as opposed to like I used to be in a job where you trade your time for a certain salary. That equation is super simple. That amount of your time is worth X amount. One of my biggest money life lessons has been, it is not as simple as work harder and then you earn more. Financial literacy will get you so far. Financial literacy is so important, and it is not taught enough in school. A lot of the time, it's not taught by our parents. I feel like my parents have done quite a good job. Like, I understand the worth of money. I had pocket money when I was a kid. I had to do chores around the house in order to earn money so I could pay for that thing that I wanted. That basic understanding of money, I feel like my parents did a really good job of. But we're talking big picture money and building wealth as an adult. I know there's a book. Now, I can't comment on it because I've never read it. It's on my list. I really want to read it. But it's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And from what I gather, it's about building wealth through investing in assets. And the huge difference between working for your money and having your money work for you. Now, what I do, and I will say, this is an unfair comment. I'm very privileged to do what I do. But a huge bonus of what I do, videos I've made in the past that are still getting views, make me money, which is a very nice setup. I'm very, very grateful for Google AdSense and how YouTube pays their creators. I think YouTube's great. Yeah, that whole thing of like making money whilst you sleep. Finding a way to do that has been revolutionary for me. Point 15. Document your life. Take loads of photos, take loads of videos. Obviously, with like having a YouTube channel, I have way more videos than the average person, I would say, but it's like such a nice thing to look back on. I'll watch vlogs of like, say the day we went to pick up mochi or the day we moved into our home. Having that so documented is like a really beautiful thing. And I already get emotional looking back on like 2 years ago. So having those videos to look back on in 10 years and 20 years will be incredible. And I don't just mean this because I'm a YouTuber and what I do. I think you absolutely should do this anyway, like for yourself, not to put it online is what I'm saying. Almost like a little digital journal, I think is so good. I know there's also the whole thing of like, you got to live in the moment. Like, you know, those really good nights or experiences where you come away and you're like, oh my God, I took like no photos, but because like you were having such a good time that you literally forgot. That is absolutely fair enough as well. We have those moments. I think I have like under 10 baby photos of me, which is fine. I was born in 1998. Like, it was a different time. I know I'll be that mom that takes a video like literally every single day, and then they'll have that to look back on. Okay, point 16. If you're watching this, you might be confused because I've suddenly changed outfit. And it's because I'm recording this part literally a week later. I completely ran out of time when I was recording this last week. So we stopped at point 15. And I'm not going to give you a whole life update. I'll save that for the next episode. We're going to get back into it. But I will say, I think I mentioned at the start of this episode, I really don't want to get ill. And I can say I got ill. I feel so rough today. I'm just not in a good state, so please forgive me if I sound a bit gross. Okay, carrying on. Point 16 is And this sounds really simple, but I think it's a really important lesson, and that's not to fear aging. I'm saying that from a place of like, I haven't, started visibly aging in terms of like wrinkles. I mean, I feel like my smile lines are getting a little bit deeper and it's like creasing around my eyes, but I am 25. I'm not all that wrinkly yet. One day I will be though, and that's so inevitable. I think now more than ever, the cosmetic industry, we're all so obsessed with anti-aging and praise those who look amazing when they're 50, 60. Oh my gosh, you look so much younger. And yes, aging gracefully is a beautiful thing. We cannot ignore the fact that cosmetic procedures are just so normalized nowadays, and not people who are like really in the public eye or celebrities. I see like young regular people I know getting it in their early 20s. And I think you can't argue that that isn't through social influence. I'm not dissing Botox. I personally don't have a problem with it. I probably will get it knowing what I'm like and how I think. But I completely admire like the generation of my parents who haven't had their faces touched at all, have let themselves just age naturally and gracefully and beautifully, and they're so beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't know why there is such an obsession with our generation of don't let yourself age and do all this preventative stuff. I mean, look at someone like Kim Kardashian. She's literally like 40, isn't she? She looks like 30. She looks incredible. Praise to her, whatever, but you can't deny that it isn't Botox, and she says it herself. She's like frozen her face. There's such a societal pressure to conform to these beauty standards, which often perpetuate unrealistic standards. You naturally are not going to look like that at 40. And I think if you can look at it in a less fearful way, and instead, I love people that have the mindset of like, oh, I lived a good life. I have these crow's feet on my eyes and these smile lines because they tell a story of a good life. Point 17. Okay, so monetizing your hobbies can be a good thing. Obviously, I am someone who's done that. I've made YouTube my full-time job. There are also negative aspects to monetizing a hobby that I feel like people maybe don't talk enough about. I know I have always been told, do something you love, make a living out of something you love, and you will never work a day in your life. I think it was my dad who used to tell me that, and I love that saying. I feel like I'm very lucky to be able to say that I feel I have done that. I absolutely love my job. However, that saying, you never work a day in your life, isn't completely true. What I love about my job that surprised me was how I've had to learn to be quite entrepreneurial, have a business head screwed on, even if I naturally don't have that. I've learned how important networking is. I love that I get to be creative. Also, with like the nature of what I do, there isn't necessarily a limit to how much money I can make, if that makes sense. So some months I make more, some months I make less. But when your hobby becomes your job, it goes without saying you are now doing that thing to make money. And not only make money, like fund your life. And once money is involved and necessary, there inevitably is going to be an increase in pressure to meet expectations. Yeah, if you make it a job, you're self-employed, you own a limited company, there is all the back end administrative work, which is not cute. And if you're like me, it is not a skill that I have. Financial knowledge, bookkeeping, like all of that responsibility actually it takes away from doing the thing you actually love. If a hobby becomes a job, make sure you still have hobbies. This is something I need to work on. Number 18. I have, for the first time in my life, been really consistent with working out this year. And I know it's since I've gone self-employed, so I have just a sort of more flexible schedule, I suppose. Last year, I really struggled with doing my office job, being self-employed with keeping up YouTube and doing that in like my evenings on the weekends, and then also fitting in working out regularly. So working out regularly just isn't something that I did last year. And this year it has been amazing to go on a journey of loving fitness and working out and actually doing it every single week, showing up for myself, seeing results mentally, physically. But that's what I want to talk about with this point, is that working out for me has more benefits for you mentally and for your mental well-being than it does for you physically. Obviously, working out is essential for having a healthy lifestyle. It just is. but I just didn't know how much of a positive impact it was going to make on me mentally. And it affects so many other areas of your well-being, from like you get better sleep, you have a better diet, you eat more because you're working out and you're fueling your body in a healthy way. And you also, when you start working out regularly, like for example, right now, I haven't worked out in a week. It has been a week. I'm ill and I was away at the weekend, so that's why. But my body misses it so much, and it does become a natural rhythm. It becomes a natural habit that you want to keep up with. It is so true that doing that over time, it does start to feel less like a chore. Whereas, at the start of trying to get in the habit of working out, oh my God, it is so tough. It doesn't feel fun. You don't want to go. I feel so good if I work out first thing in the morning. If I've started my day that way, I've done something for me. I might go on and have a crappy day. That happens, but at least I did that. Something I have learned this year is we see all these gym transformations, and I think it's so easy to compare your body to how all these gym influencers, fitness influencers look online. When you start working out, you understand muscle takes literal years to build. I'm your typical girl who wants to try grow her glutes in the gym. And this is the first year ever that I've seen a slight result in my glutes. And it takes months. You're just not going to see that over a month or 2 months. Oh, you suddenly have a booty. That's why the physical bonuses of working out can't be your main goal. It's arbitrary. I think when you fall in love with what working out feels like for your body, that's when you start to really feel the difference and fall in love with moving your body. Also, a change of mindset is to think of working out now in your younger years as an investment into your older body. It's almost like a pension. Working out now is going to ensure that you just are fitter and you feel better in your older years. Number 19, I'll make this one short because I did kind of a whole podcast episode on it. Do not underestimate the importance and value of a digital detox. We live in a very digital world. A lot of our jobs focus a lot around digital involvement. That was a weird way of wording it, but you know what I mean. It's hard to not be absolutely consumed on the day-to-day by everything digital. Our screen times are higher than ever. For those who listened to the pod or you watched my little vlog over on YouTube, I went on a little digital detox retreat with Unplugged, where they basically have cabins out in the middle of nowhere. You go for 2-3 days and you lock up your phone. You do not have access to technology. You have board games for entertainment and all of that. But that tiny little 3-day experience was pretty eye-opening for Will and I. Will has basically been off social media since that. He deleted Instagram off his phone. He still goes on Instagram. He's not deleted his account, but almost make it harder for himself. So he has to go on to the web browser and go into Instagram that way. So it's a lot more of an obstacle, and therefore he's on Instagram way less. Regular detoxes, you can do them at home. You don't have to go away and book a cabin, but at the weekend, say for a Sunday, a day where you can be a little bit disconnected, maybe pick up a book, do things that just do not involve a screen. Number 20, this is kind of a small point, but I really like it because it's taught me a lot and it's put me in really good situations. And that is, you're never going to regret taking the first step, especially in social situations. So because of what I do, I occasionally get invited to events, which is really cool, with brands. And a lot of the time you can't bring a +1, you can't bring a friend. Everyone there comes by themselves, which is quite nice because you are forced to interact. It's obviously a little bit nerve-wracking. I don't think I'm all that socially anxious. I naturally was a really shy kid, would never raise my hand in class, never wanted to be the first one to talk, initiate conversation. And that's something that I remember I really didn't like about myself when I was younger. And I feel like I had to work on it quite a bit, definitely in high school, my young adult years. I think having a part-time job when I was 16 helped me a lot. I worked in retail and you're thrusted into the world of you have to talk to anybody and everyone. But yeah, I still feel that sort of shyness, nervousness when I go to an event by myself. And I feel like that's normal. I'm not beating myself up about that. But I always feel really good and proud of myself when I will take the initiative and I'll go up to someone. and start a conversation. You meet so many new interesting people. You might potentially make a friend. There's so little to lose. It almost feels like courageous, and it helps you just like overcome that fear. The more you do it, the more it feels natural. Number 21, we're almost there. There is no point in over planning your life, and I mean that by the specific example is when I was younger, I really was a bit more obsessed with like, okay, by 30 I want to have met my person that I'm going to marry, and then by 35 I want to have a kid. But okay, I'm saying by, but I mean more like that was the age I wanted. I was like, I could never imagine getting engaged before like 28. I don't want a kid before I'm 35. I don't know why I was so anal about those like age milestones. And if you had told maybe like 18-year-old me that you're going to be engaged when you're 23, I would probably freak out. But lo and behold, I met the love of my life when I was 19. If you believe in that, like love of your life. My person, actually I didn't meet him when I was 19. We got together when I was 19. And that is how life plays out. You never know what cards you're going to be dealt. So yeah, don't stress about the over planning. Point 22. Talking about relationships, I feel like it wouldn't be right to not mention something I've learned from relationships, especially since I've been in such a long-term one and I'm engaged. So what I've learned from having what I can call a successful relationship is a few things. I want to talk about, maybe could be like a whole episode, but I want to talk about the key components I found from being in a long-term successful quote unquote relationship, whatever you count as successful. The biggest thing that I think is really relevant for Will and I is you have to allow each other to change. Now, like I said, we got together when I was 19. He was 24. Naturally, like I've been saying throughout this whole episode, these are years where you change so much. You are not going to be the same person as when you met. And I feel like sometimes, sadly, that is when a relationship takes a wrong turn. You're not as compatible anymore. I hope my sister doesn't mind me saying this, but I've seen it with her past relationship. But something Will and I have been quite lucky with is we really both have let each other grow in this relationship. And we've both been completely wholeheartedly supportive of one another and open-minded to things that the other person wants. For example, we made the move to London, and that like never would have worked if one of us wanted it and one of us didn't want it. So of course, luck comes into play. That is something we both wanted. But we went through our tests. We were a couple that lived together throughout COVID, or we bought a house together. That's a massive test. I think honestly a bigger test is having a dog together. You're both taking care of this living thing. I do also want to make the point of having someone who has similar like core values and morals to you is pretty important. And something else, and another point, this is my last point for this point, is genuinely admiring them externally, internally, just wholeheartedly looking up to that person. And you should feel lucky to have that person as your person. Number 23, if you're not happy in a situation, maybe it's work, maybe it's a relationship, quitting is not lazy. It can be the brave option. I did a whole episode about this. I think it was about how failing and quitting is a good thing. So I recommend you go listen to that episode if you want sort of a deep dive into that. But just the whole understanding that facing challenges head on and building resilience is a crucial part of personal growth. And it couldn't be more true that you do not grow in your comfort bubble. You grow outside of it. I think setbacks with your stepping stones are still success. I think you still learn something from failure. Anyway, go listen to that episode because I explain it a lot better. 24, this is a very specific example, but no doubt about it, working for a startup company taught me so much. Last year when I had an office job here in London, I was a social media manager for a startup company. The company was in the co-working industry. I feel like it's completely overlooked, the benefits of working for a startup, because I feel like when you graduate and so many people say, oh, go work for that big company. And yes, there might be more benefits, whatever. It's not black or white. Like there's pros and cons to both sides. You might get better pay as well at a big company, but you are such a small cog in this massive system, are kind of going to stick to your lane. Joining a startup, you're going to see all aspects of the business. And it is incredible if you are someone who maybe wants to go start your own business. I learned so much about marketing because it was just me and the head of marketing. I was just exposed to so much that if I were a bigger company, like none of that would have been my responsibility. I wouldn't have really seen it. That job was like, I had to do a little bit of everything. And even though sometimes like that's not great for your confidence because you have no idea what you're doing, you feel like you're doing everything wrong all the time. I don't know, if you have a good team who are like understanding of that and who are creating an environment for you to grow, then it's amazing, I think. Last point, pretending to know it all actually makes you less smart. You know those people that like they just pretend to know everything? Like in my opinion, it comes from a place of ignorance and actually sort of a closed-minded approach. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is true intelligence involves a willingness to consider alternative viewpoints and to be open to continually expanding your knowledge. I think it's a sign of humility and is also brave to point out your own imperfections and be open to learning more. And it's always been the case that innovation thrives in situations where individuals actually feel comfortable questioning the environment they're in. Okay, so I asked over on Instagram to give me your favorite current top, like number one life lesson at the moment. Okay, so let's see what you said. There is no right person, wrong time. Everything comes at the right time for you. I really like that. I think people get so obsessed with analyzing, oh, is this the right time? Will and I, like when we got together, Will had just moved away from Edinburgh. Like it was not the right time to be getting in a relationship. He was starting a master's. I was still in Edinburgh and had no plans to move at that point. It made very little sense for us to get together actually, but believe me, you'll work it out. Someone says slow down, 100%. I think a lot of people can take something from that. It's not what you do occasionally, it's what you do consistently. I really like that. I've actually never heard of that saying, but it makes a lot of sense and applies to so many aspects of life. Everyone is on time for their own path, so don't compare yourself. So true. I've been seeing quite a few things that are like, I'm 30 and I've never had a relationship. I haven't bought a house. I'm whatever. And it's like, can't be behind in life. There's no such thing as being behind in life. It is your own journey. You're on your own path. And comparing yourself to other people's paths is actually just a waste of time and a waste of your energy. Planning is important, but so is to adapt when things don't go according to plan. If you want it, work for it. Yep, I 100% stand by that. I feel like we look up to people so much and we're like, oh, they were so lucky. How did they do that? But they probably weren't afraid of hard work. Peace isn't something you can take for granted. It's fragile and such a privilege. Always trust your gut. You owe yourself respect first and foremost. Someone else said something about you're not falling behind, you're just on your own path and pace. These are like affirmations. I'm just throwing affirmations your way. I hope when you come away from this podcast, you're going to be in a good mood. This is interesting. Don't work for a company just because they pay well. Gauge the culture. I can so agree with this. Like I have friends who, took the high paying job, but company culture is all over the place. And think about how much time you spend at your job. Like make sure you get that right. Make sure you're a good fit for them. Oh, I like this. You can do everything right and it will still go wrong. The key is to never stop doing it right. I've learned that I want my legacy to be how much I loved others, not in what I achieved. That's deep. That's really cute. Financial literacy is more important than it seems. I agree. Slow down again. I don't need to romanticize every day. It is okay to have a boring day. Oh my gosh, so true. Doesn't matter if your reset days are aesthetic. I know I'm very guilty for creating the aesthetic routines on YouTube, but in reality, some of my most important days are the really, really boring ones to watch that I don't film. So don't get caught up in comparing yours to others. Okay, I gotta shoot off because like I said, I'm not feeling too great. And I'm just gonna spend the day probably on the couch with Mochi on my laptop. I need to recover, not feeling too good, especially. I mean, I had the best weekend. It was amazing. I'll tell you about it in next week's episode. But anyway, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Also, a quick reminder that the giveaway to win a pair of Apple AirPod Max headphones is still open. I think the giveaway finishes this Sunday, the 3rd of December. So make sure to enter. If you wouldn't mind giving this 5 stars and following on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, that would be amazing. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow on Instagram, all that good stuff. I love you guys so much and I'll see you in next week's episode.
Thank you, my loves, for listening to this week's episode of Bloom with Becca. Be sure to follow the Bloom with Becca Instagram page to get involved each week with your questions, your stories, your thoughts on different topics, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys next week for a new episode. Love you. Bye.